Okay, let's unpack this. If you're well, like most people working today, you spend a huge amount of your day doing one thing.
Just sitting.
Exactly. Sitting. Think about it. Your commute, maybe.
Hmm.
Then you're at your desk for, what, 8
Maybe
hours?
sit through lunch.
Sit on the way home, sit on the couch later. I mean, it adds up so fast.
It really does. And one study we dug into actually quantified this for office workers. It found the average is, get this, 6.29 hours
Wow.
out of an 8-hour shift, just sitting.
6.25 hours just in the workday.
And like you said, that's just the average from the work part. You factor in everything else, the commute, meals, maybe relaxing in the evening.
Yeah.
It's really common for people to hit 8, 10, even 12 hours or more every single day.
Yeah.
It's sort of become the default posture for modern life, hasn't it?
It really has. And, for so many of us, all that sitting comes with, well, consequences. That nagging ache in your lower back, maybe.
Yeah.
Stiffness in the neck, shoulders feeling all tight and sore. It's so common it feels, well, it feels normal.
Right. Like, oh, I work at a desk. Of course my back's going to hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
But the research and guidelines we looked at, they really push back hard against that idea. They suggest this discomfort isn't, inevitable. It's often a really clear signal.
A signal that something's wrong.
Yeah, that something in your setup or your habits needs a change. And a prime suspect that keeps coming up.
The chair.
The chair itself. And maybe even more importantly, how you're using it. Or maybe not using its features correctly.
Okay, so that's exactly what this deep dive is all about. We're going to explore the, honestly, pretty significant physical impacts and health effects of sitting for so long. We really get into what makes an ergonomic chair different. Like, what are the features that actually make a difference? And we're going to spend some real time on that crucial piece.
Lumbar support. Got to talk about lumbar support.
Absolutely. And then, okay, you've got the chair. How do you actually set it up right?
Yeah.
They give you a step-by-step guide for adjusting it to fit your body.
Which is so vital. And then, importantly, we need to look beyond the chair because, the research, expert advice, even just real-world user experiences we saw, they all confirm it.
What's that?
Even the world's best chair isn't magic if you don't move. Movement, your whole workstation setup, it's all part of the bigger picture.
Right.
So we've pulled insights from some detailed studies on health outcomes, official guidelines on workstation ergonomics, and also, practical tips for people who've actually wrestled with this stuff.
So get ready to think a bit differently about where you park yourself for hours a day. This isn't just about buying fancy furniture.
No.
It's about understanding our bodies, understanding our workspaces, and making informed choices. Choices that are really an investment in your long-term health, your comfort, and even your ability to focus and get stuff done without being bugged by aches and pains all the time.
Well said. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's really hammer home why this matters by looking at the scale of this sitting thing. That statistic you mentioned, 6.29 hours sitting during an 8-hour shift, that was from a study of Iranian office workers, right?
That's right. And that's roughly, 78% of their paid workday spent seated?
Wow.
And, while that study was specific, it feels pretty representative of office jobs globally, doesn't it?
Totally. I mean, think about your own day. Add the commute, maybe sitting in meetings.
Grabbing lunch at your desk.
Yeah, and then unwinding on the sofa later. You can easily see how it climbs to 8, 10, 12 hours a day without even trying.
It's kind of insidious. Our bodies, they just weren't built for staying still that long.
So what actually happened, physically, when we just sit there hour after hour?
Yeah, that's where the physical strain really kicks in. And one of the big things the sources highlight is the pressure on your spine, specifically those lumbar discs.
The cushiony bits in the lower back.
Exactly, the intervertebral discs. They act like shock absorbers. Now, when you're just sitting, especially without good back support, the pressure inside those discs goes up significantly. Compared to standing, sitting increases that internal pressure by about 30%.
Just from sitting, 30% more pressure.
Yep. But here's the kicker. If you slouch...
Which, let's be honest, most of us do after a while.
Right. When you're tired or the chair isn't supporting you properly, slouching can apparently make that pressure jump even higher, potentially even doubling the pressure compared to sitting with good posture.
Doubling it. Okay, that explains so much of the common lower back pain people feel.
Yeah.
You're literally squashing those discs.
Pretty much. And like you said earlier, it's not just about feeling a bit sore at the end of the day. The sources draw a really clear line from all this sitting to some much more serious long-term health problems.
Beyond just the aches and pains.
Absolutely. I mean, the physical pain is often the first thing you notice, but it's a symptom of a bigger issue. That study we mentioned, it detailed how common musculoskeletal symptoms were.
What were the numbers like?
They were pretty concerning. Over half the office workers in that study reported pain in their neck, 53.5%. Lower back was almost identical, 53.2%. And shoulders, 51.6%.
So neck, back, shoulders, the usual suspects, affecting over half the people.
Right. But it didn't stop there. A significant number also had issues with their wrists and hands, nearly 40%. Upper back pain, almost 44%. Even things like thighs, knees, feet, ankles, they all had notable percentages reporting symptoms.
Wow, that covers pretty much the whole body, doesn't it?
It really does. And other sources back this up. They estimate the prevalence of these musculoskeletal disorders, or MSDs, specifically linked to office work and computer use, is somewhere between 40% and a massive 80% of office workers.
80%, that's huge.
It is. And these MSDs are directly tied to things like holding static postures for too long.
Just sitting still.
Exactly. Also awkward postures, like reaching or twisting, and those repetitive movements we all do typing, using the mouse over and over, often without good support or enough breaks.
So, yeah, it's definitely not just a minor ache for a huge chunk of the workforce. It's chronic pain. But the risks go beyond muscles and joints, right? You mentioned cardiometabolic issues.
Yes, and this is where it gets systemic, affecting your whole body. That same study found pretty significant rates of hypertension, high blood pressure at 6.3%, and hyperlipidemia, that's high cholesterol or fats in the blood, at 11.2%. Both of these were linked in the study to how much people sat for their jobs.
Okay.
And beyond that specific study, there's a ton of research connecting more sitting time with a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes and also with obesity.
How does just sitting do that? What's the mechanism?
Well, the sources explain a few key things. When you're inactive for long periods, like sitting for hours, your body kind of dials down certain processes. For instance, the activity of an enzyme called lipoprotein lipase gets suppressed.
Lipoprotein lipase, what does that do?
It's really important for processing fats. It helps break down triglycerides, fats in your bloodstream, so your muscles and tissues can absorb them for energy. When its activity is low because you're sitting still, those fats tend to hang around in your blood longer.
Contributing to hyperlipidemia.
Exactly. Sitting also seems to reduce how much insulin your body secretes, and it makes your muscles less efficient at taking up glucose sugar from your blood. Both of those things push you towards blood sugar problems and increase the risk of type 2 diabetes over time.
Okay, so it messes with fat and sugar metabolism. Anything else?
There's also evidence suggesting that prolonged sitting can increase the production of something called pro-inflammatory cytokines.
Pro-inflammatory, so they promote inflammation.
Yeah, basically. These are signaling molecules that trigger inflammation throughout your body. And chronic low-grade inflammation is linked to the development of all sorts of cardiovascular problems down the road.
Wow. So slower metabolism, problems handling fats and sugars, more inflammation, that's a really nasty combination for your heart and overall metabolic health. And disturbingly, I think the sources mentioned even more serious risks.
Unfortunately, yes. They reference studies that link sedentary behavior, lots of sitting, to an increased risk for certain types of cancer. Specifically mentioned were colorectal, ovarian, prostate, and endometrial cancers.
That's incredibly serious.
It is. And maybe the most sobering statistic comes from the World Health Organization. They estimate that globally, around 3.2 million premature deaths each year can be attributed to sedentary lifestyles.
3.2 million deaths linked to not moving enough.
Yeah. And one specific study cited found that people who sit for almost their entire working day have a 1.4 times greater chance of dying prematurely over a 12-year period compared to people who sit for much less time at work.
1.4 times.
Yeah.
Just based on how much you sit at your job. That really puts the everyday aches and pains into a completely different, almost life or death perspective.
It absolutely does. And even the immediate effects on just getting through the workday are significant. That Iranian study found nearly 3/4, 73.6% of participants reported feeling exhausted during the workday.
Yeah, that afternoon slump.
Right. And there was a clear link found between sitting for longer hours and having lower job satisfaction, which makes total sense, right? If you're constantly fighting discomfort, pain, fatigue, your focus, your mood, your overall feeling about your job is bound to suffer.
Definitely.
And this whole problem is made worse by this massive shift in how we work that's happened over the last few decades.
From active jobs to desk jobs.
Exactly. The sources point out that between the 1960s and around 2010, the average amount of energy we burn just doing our jobs, our occupational energy expenditure dropped significantly.
How much?
The estimate is around 100 fewer calories burned per day on average, just from the job itself becoming more sedentary. And that decrease alone is thought to be responsible for a huge chunk, potentially up to 80% of the average weight gain seen in the working population during that same period.
Wow. So our jobs stopped making us move. And it had a direct impact on weight.
Pretty much. It's like our evolutionary history built for movement is clashing head-on with the reality of the modern office. And the consequences are, well, they're profound.
Okay, the picture is definitely clear. Sitting still for hours is bad news for our bodies, short-term and long-term. Affects everything from muscles and joints to metabolism, even lifespan. So this brings us to the ergonomic chair. The sources present this as like a primary tool to try and fight back against some of these negative effects, right?
Right, exactly. Given that sitting is, a reality for so many jobs, the ergonomic chair is designed as an intervention. It's meant to make that sitting time as supportive and, frankly, as least harmful as possible.
So what's the main goal? What's an ergonomic chair fundamentally trying to do for us?
Its core purpose is to support your body's natural shape, especially your spine's curves. Your spine isn't straight. It has that natural S-curve when you look at it from the side.
Right, the inward curve in the lower back.
That's called lordosis, yeah. And there's an inward curve in the neck, too. Ergonomic chairs are specifically designed to help you maintain those natural curves, particularly that lower back one. They aim to stop you from flattening out your lower back and slumping forward.
Okay.
By doing that, they help distribute your weight and the pressure more evenly, reducing the stress on your spine, muscles, and discs that builds up when you sit for a long time.
So it's actively working against gravity and fatigue, pulling you into that bad posture. How is it really different from, say, just a standard kitchen chair or one of those basic cheap office chairs?
The biggest difference is adjustability. An intentional design that's based on anthropometry, that's the science of human body measurements and how we move. A basic chair is often just rigid. Flat seat, straight back, doesn't really follow your body's shape. An ergonomic chair, though, has multiple parts. You can adjust the height, the depth, the back, the armrests to fit your specific body size and your preferences. It's designed to support your form, and some even allow for a little bit of subtle movement while you're sitting, because we now know that just staying completely static is part of the problem.
And it's crucial to remember the chair is important, but it's just one piece, right? I think one source called it one of 8 key parts of an ergonomic workstation.
Exactly. It's probably the most central piece for someone who sits all day, but it absolutely has to work with everything else. Your desk height, where your monitor is, keyboard position, mouse placement, lighting. All of it needs to come together to create a truly supportive setup that's tailored to you and what you do.
Okay, so if we're looking at ergonomic chairs, maybe buying one or trying to figure out the one we already have,
Yeah.
what are the absolute critical features? What makes them effective, according to the sources? Let's break down the anatomy.
Yeah, the sources get pretty specific here, which is helpful. They outline several key parts and why they matter. Let's maybe start from the ground up with seat height.
Seems simple, but I know getting this wrong throws everything else off.
It's totally foundational. First off, it needs to be easily adjustable. The sources recommend a pneumatic lever. The gas lift thing is the easiest way. The goal: adjust the height so your feet rest flat on the floor
Flat on the floor.
or on a footrest if your feet don't reach the floor when the chair is at the right height relative to your desk. At the same time, your thighs should be roughly horizontal, parallel to the floor. And crucially, your arms, specifically your forearms and wrists, should be about even with the height of your desk surface when your elbows are bent.
Okay, that ensures a neutral wrist position for typing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The typical height range for most chairs is somewhere between 16 and 21 inches off the floor, designed to fit most people.
Got it. Feet flat, thighs level, arms even with the desk. What's next? The seat itself, seat width, and depth.
Right. Width is usually pretty standard, around 17 to 20 inches across, wide enough for most people to sit comfortably without feeling squeezed. But seat depth, how far the seat goes from front to back, that's really critical and often overlooked.
How deep should it be?
Here's the test. When you're sitting with your bottom pushed all the way back against the backrest, there needs to be a gap between the back of your knees and the front edge of the seat. How big a gap? About 2 to 4 inches. You should be able to fit maybe 2 or 3 fingers or even your clenched fist in that space.
Why is that gap so important? What if the seat's too deep?
If the seat edge presses right into the back of your knees, it can compress the blood vessels and nerves there. Over a long day, that can restrict blood flow and potentially cause discomfort, tingling, or even numbness in your legs.
Ouch. Okay, so proper depth aids circulation.
Yes, and ideally, the seat depth itself should be adjustable, allowing you to slide it forward or backward. Some seats also allow for a slight forward or backward tilt adjustment, which can also help with comfort and circulation.
Makes sense. Avoid cutting off the blood flow. Now, on to the backrest. This is where the spine support really happens, right?
Exactly. The main job of the backrest is to support the natural curves of your spine. It needs to be wide enough to feel supportive, generally somewhere between 12 and 19 inches, and ideally it should offer adjustment.
Like height and angle.
Yeah.
Right.
If the backrest is separate from the seat pan, you should be able to adjust its height so you can position the lumbar curve correctly, and also its angle, how much it reclines. If the seat and back are one piece, you should at least be able to adjust the recline angle and lock it in place where it feels comfortable and supportive for you. But the absolute key function is supporting that inward curve in your lower back.
Which brings us neatly to the feature that all the sources seem to emphasize above almost all others: lumbar support.
This really is the star player, especially if you struggle with lower back pain. Its entire purpose is to fill that gap, to actively support the natural inward curve, the lordosis in your lower spine.
Why is that so critical?
Because without that support, when you sit for a long time, your lower back tends to flatten out or even round outwards into a slouch. That flattened posture puts a ton of strain on your discs, the ligaments, the muscles back there. It's a direct contributor to pain and potential injury over time. The sources even mention that lack of proper lumbar support is a major factor in workers' comp claims for back problems.
Okay, so it's actively preventing that damaging slump. But it sounds like lumbar support isn't just one thing. The sources talked about different types. It seems more complex than just a bump on the chair back.
It really is more nuanced. The sources break it down into roughly 3 main types, each offering a different level of fit and control. The most basic is fixed lumbar support.
Fixed, meaning you can't adjust it.
Exactly. The curve is just built into the shape or padding of the backrest itself. You often find this on simpler, maybe less expensive chairs. Now, it's definitely better than a totally flat backrest. But the big drawback is that everyone's spine is different. The height, the depth of that curve varies from person to person. So a fixed support might be perfect for one person, but too high, too low, or not pronounced enough for someone else. It might not hit the right spot, making it less effective or potentially even uncomfortable.
Kind of a gamble then. What's the next step up?
That would be adjustable lumbar support. And this is where you start getting real control. These allow you to manually customize the support to better match your specific back shape. The best ones offer multiple adjustments.
Like what?
First, height adjustment. This is crucial. It lets you move the support up or down so the most prominent part fits right into the curve of your lower back, which is usually just above your belt line.
Okay, position it correctly.
Second, depth adjustment. This controls how much the support pushes outwards into your back. Some people need just a gentle reminder to keep their curve. Others need more pronounced support. Depth adjustment lets you dial that in.
Makes sense.
And third, sometimes you find firmness adjustment. Some higher-end chairs let you control how soft or hard that support feels against your back, maybe with a little knob or lever.
So adjustable lets you really tailor it. And the sources suggested having multiple adjustments is best.
Yes, definitely. The consensus seems to be that having control over both height and depth, and ideally firmness too, gives you the best chance of creating support that's truly effective and comfortable for your unique spine. It's the difference between off the rack and tailored, basically.
And then there's that third type, which sounded pretty advanced: dynamic lumbar support.
Yeah, this is usually found on the more premium chairs. Dynamic systems are designed to automatically adjust as you move. So as you shift your posture slightly, maybe lean back a bit or twist, the support subtly changes its depth or pressure to continuously match the changing shape of your back.
So it supports you even when you fidget or stretch.
That's the idea. It provides continuous adaptive support, recognizing that people don't and shouldn't sit perfectly still like statues for hours on end. It accommodates those natural micro movements.
Interesting. Okay, so we have fixed, adjustable, which gives you manual control, and dynamic, offering automatic adaptation. Let's talk about armrests. I used to think they were just there, but they have a real ergonomic job too.
They absolutely do, and it's an important one for your upper body. Properly adjusted armrests let you rest your arms comfortably and, crucially, keep your shoulders relaxed, not hunched up by your ears.
Right.
The goal is often to get roughly a 90-degree bend at your elbows when your hands are in typing position. Now, an important note, while you might rest your forearms on them when you lean back or take a quick break, you ideally shouldn't be resting your forearms heavily on the armrests while you're actively typing. That can sometimes put pressure on nerves in your wrist or elbow.
Okay, so they mainly support your arms and take the weight off your shoulders when you're not actively using your hands, reducing strain on your neck and upper back.
Yeah.
And they need to be adjustable.
Yes, definitely height adjustable, ideally width adjustable too, so you can get them in the right position relative to your body. And they need to be positioned so they don't block you from getting your chair close enough to your desk. If the armrests hit the desk edge, you'll end up sitting too far away. Correct height prevents that shoulder hunching or leaning. And as a side benefit, they can provide a bit of leverage when you're sitting down or getting up.
What about headrests?
Yep.
Essential, optional.
They're more optional for general office work, but very valuable in certain situations. A headrest provides support for your head and neck, mainly when you recline or lean back.
So good for breaks or phone calls.
Exactly. It gives your neck muscles a chance to relax. They're often found on chairs designed for really long hours, like 247 dispatch centers or specific task chairs where reducing neck strain is paramount. Not essential for everyone, but definitely a plus for some.
Moving down to what you're actually sitting on, the seat material and padding, does this matter beyond just feeling soft?
Oh, it matters a lot, especially over a full workday. You need enough padding for comfort, obviously, but crucially, the sources emphasize that the padding should be firm rather than super soft and squishy.
Why firm? Doesn't soft sound more comfortable?
It might initially, but really soft padding tends to compress too easily and bottom out quickly. It loses its shape and supportive qualities over time. Firm, high-quality padding provides better, more consistent support for longer and is much more durable. The covering material matters too. Breathable fabrics are generally better than things like vinyl or some leathers because they allow air to circulate and help prevent you from getting hot and sweaty.
Makes sense. And one source specifically compared memory foam versus high-density foam. What was the lowdown there?
Yeah, that was interesting. So memory foam, the stuff NASA helped develop, its big selling point is how it conforms to your body shape. It molds to your contours, which gives really good pressure distribution and relief. It can also adjust to temperature and is often hypoallergenic. It can sometimes retain heat, which some people don't like. There might be an initial off-gassing smell, though that usually fades. And historically, there were environmental concerns about production, although manufacturers are improving that. It also tends to be a bit more expensive up front, though it can be durable.
Okay, and high-density foam.
This is a type of polyurethane foam. Its main strengths are providing firm, consistent support and being very durable. It holds its shape well over time. Generally, it's more cost-effective up front than memory foam. The key thing is the density rating. Higher density means better quality and longer life.
Trade-offs.
It's less adaptive than memory foam. It doesn't contour quite as closely to your body, which some might find less comfortable or even a bit too stiff. And similar to memory foam, there are environmental aspects to its production, though again, improvements are being made.
So it's kind of a choice between that body-conforming feel of memory foam and the consistent, firm support of high-density foam, balanced against cost, potential heat retention, and personal preference. What about moving the chair itself? Mobility.
Mobility features are important for efficiency and reducing strain. A swivel action lets you turn easily to reach different parts of your desk without twisting your torso. And casters, the wheels or glides, let you roll or slide the chair easily to get in and out, or move around your immediate workspace.
But you don't want it rolling away too easily, right?
Yeah.
Safety concerns.
Absolutely. Stability is key. The chair shouldn't shoot out from under you when you go to sit down. The sources mention choosing the right kind of casters for your floor type. Softer wheels for hard floors like wood or tile to prevent scratching and reduce rolling speed. Harder wheels for carpet. Glides are an option if you don't need to roll much. Some specialized chairs even have brakes that engage when you sit down, which is a great safety feature.
Good point. Stability is just as crucial as movement. Okay, beyond the physical parts, the actual adjustability mechanisms are what make it all work.
Totally. These are the levers, knobs, and buttons that let you actually use all those features we just talked about. They're what allow you to customize the chair to your body, your task, and your preferred posture. The sources describe several different types of tilt mechanisms, which control how the seat and back move together when you recline.
Okay, what are the main types?
There's basic tilt, sometimes called center tilt. The whole chair just rocks back and forth from a pivot point under the center of the seat. Simple, but maybe less sophisticated support. Some might offer a forward tilt option, which can open the hip angle. Multi-tilt, this usually means more levers, often 3. It typically allows you to adjust the seat height, the angle of the seat pan itself, tilt it forward or back independently, and the angle of the backrest independently. Lots of control.
Right.
Knee tilt. This pivots the chair from a point closer to your knees. The advantage is that when you tilt back, your feet are more likely to stay flat on the floor compared to a basic center tilt. Then there's synchronous tilt, or synchro tilt. This is very common and popular on good ergonomic chairs. When you lean back, the backrest reclines more than the seat tilts up, usually at a set ratio like 2-to-1 or 3-to-1.
What's the benefit of that?
It allows you to open up your posture and recline comfortably, stretching your chest and taking pressure off your spine while keeping your feet relatively grounded and your line of sight more level with your monitor. Feels quite natural for many people.
That sounds useful. Any others?
Sometimes you see lever mechanisms mentioned, which might just refer to systems where the seat and back adjustments are completely independent using separate levers. The potential downside there is you could end up with an awkward angle between the seat and back if you don't adjust them carefully in relation to each other.
So the tilt mechanism really affects how the chair feels when you move or recline, with synchronous being a popular choice for desk work. Lastly, let's quickly touch on durability and that specific point about gas lift chair safety.
Right. Durability is huge. Ergonomic chairs can be a big investment, so you want them to last. Look for sturdy construction, quality materials, and maybe chairs that meet certain industry standards for safety and performance. Regular checks for loose parts or wear and tear are also a good idea.
And the gas lift safety, that seemed important.
Very. The guidelines were clear. If your chair's gas lift cylinder starts wobbling, sinking unexpectedly, or feels unstable, do not try to fix it yourself. These cylinders are under pressure. Contact the supplier or manufacturer immediately. Also, respect the weight limits. Standard chairs are usually rated up to around 110 kilograms, about 220 to 140 pounds. Heavier users need chairs specifically designed for higher weight capacities. And avoid misusing the chair. Don't stand on it. Don't rock violently back if it's not designed for it. If you notice any defect, contact the supplier before trying any DIY repairs or modifications. Safety first.
That's really crucial advice, especially the part about not messing with the cylinder. Okay, so understanding all these parts, seat, back, lumbar, arms, mechanisms, safety, that's step 1.
Yeah.
Right? So let's say you've done the research, maybe tried some chairs out, picked one with good adjustable features. Like we said, that's great, but it's just the tool. If it's not set up right for you, for your body, you won't get the benefits. Might even make things worse.
Exactly. Having the adjustments is useless if you don't use them correctly. The sources give a pretty clear step-by-step process for this. It's not just fiddling around randomly, there's a method.
It's like adjusting the seat in your car.
Yeah.
Right? You need to get everything lined up for your specific size and reach.
That's a perfect analogy. You need to tune it to your body. So let's walk through those steps, pulling together the advice from the different sources.
Where do you actually start? With the chair itself or something else?
You actually start by getting yourself positioned relative to your desk, your main work surface. Sit down and pull your chair in as close to the desk as you comfortably can. A good starting posture is to let your upper arms hang naturally by your sides, roughly parallel to your spine. That sets your distance.
Okay, sitting close, arms hanging down. Next is height, right? How do you set that?
Yes, seat height is the first big adjustment. And there's a specific way to gauge it, the elbow measure, as the sources call it. With your upper arms hanging relaxed, gently rest your hands on your work surface, like on your keyboard. Now adjust the chair height up or down using that lever until your elbows are bent at roughly a 90-degree angle.
90 degrees at the elbow.
Right. Your forearms should be about parallel to the floor, and your wrists should be relatively straight, not angled sharply up or down to reach the keyboard. This puts your arms and wrists in the least stressful position for typing.
Got it. Elbows at 90 degrees for desk height.
Yeah.
But we also need our feet flat on the floor.
Yeah.
Right, so how do you check that? The thigh measure.
Exactly. This is the second part of the height check, making sure your lower body is positioned correctly too. Once your elbows are set at that 90-degree angle for the desk, check under your thighs. Can you easily slide your fingers between the front edge of the seat and the underside of your thigh?
What if it's tight?
If it's tight, if the seat edge is pressing firmly into your thigh, your chair is too high relative to your feet. You'll need to lower the seat. Now, here's the potential conflict. If lowering the seat makes your elbows drop too low for the desk.
Then your desk might be too high.
Precisely. Or at least too high for you with that chair height. In that case, you'd keep the chair height correct for your arms, elbows at 90 degrees, and use a footrest to bring the floor up to meet your feet.
And if there's too much space under your thigh?
If there's a big gap, you might need to raise the seat slightly. But again, you have to balance this with keeping your arms at the right height for the desk. Taller people might find they need to raise the chair quite high, and then they might need to look at raising their monitor or even using a keyboard tray to maintain good upper body posture. It's about finding the best overall alignment, sometimes using accessories like footrests or monitor stands.
Okay, so it's a balancing act between arm desk height and leg-foot position. Sometimes needs a footrest. What about seat depth? We know it's important for circulation. How do you check that?
This is another crucial one. With your bottom pushed all the way back, firmly against the backrest, try to fit your clenched fist between the back of your cap and the front edge of the seat pan.
A whole fist.
Yeah, or maybe 2 to 3 fingers held sideways. If you can't comfortably fit your fist or fingers in that gap, the seat is too deep for your legs.
And how do you fix a seat that's too deep? Assuming you can't just grow longer legs.
Right. Well, hopefully your chair has adjustable seat depth. If it does, you need to slide the seat pan forward away from the backrest until you create that fist-sized gap.
What if the depth isn't adjustable?
Then you need a workaround. If your chair's backrest can slide forward, try that. If not, the most common solution is to use an external low back support, a lumbar cushion, a small pillow, even just a rolled-up towel. You place that behind your lower back.
Ah, so that pushes you forward on the seat.
Exactly. It effectively shortens the seat depth for you, creating that needed space behind your knees while still making sure your back is making contact with the support. If none of that works, it might genuinely mean that particular chair model just isn't a good fit for your proportions.
Okay, the fist test for seat depth. It's a good visual. And this leads right into adjusting the low back support itself, that crucial lumbar piece.
Perfect transition. Okay, so your bottom is still pressed right back against the chair. Now focus on that lumbar support area. If your chair has adjustable lumbar support height, depth, maybe firmness, this is where you fine-tune it.
How do you find the right spot?
First, adjust the height. Move the support up or down until its most curved or prominent part fits right into the natural inward curve of your lower back. For most people, that's just above the belt line or waist level. Feel for where your spine naturally curves in.
Okay, get the height right, then depth.
If you have depth adjustment, experiment with how much it pushes forward into your back. You want it to feel supportive, like it's gently encouraging that natural arch. It should feel like it's filling the gap, preventing you from slouching, but it shouldn't feel like a sharp object digging into your spine. It should be noticeable support, but comfortable.
Finding that just right level of support for your own curve.
Exactly. It helps you maintain that healthy lordotic curve without you having to constantly think about it, especially as you get tired later in the day.
What about the rest of the backrest height and angle?
Make sure the overall backrest is high enough to support most of your back, usually up to your shoulder blades at least. If the angle is adjustable, set it where it feels comfortable and supportive for what you're doing. Maybe slightly reclined is comfortable for general work, maybe more upright for intense focus. Use the lock if needed to keep it there.
Then armrest adjustment. We know they help with shoulder strain.
Adjust the height of the armrests, so when you rest your arms on them, your shoulders are totally relaxed, not shrugged up, not drooping down. The armrest should just lightly support the weight of your arms, taking strain off your shoulders and neck, primarily when you're not actively typing or mousing. And again, make sure they're positioned, maybe adjust the width if possible so you can still pull your chair in close to the desk.
Right. And finally, one more critical piece, not part of the chair, but essential for posture. Getting your monitor right, using the resting eye level check.
Absolutely vital for preventing neck pain, which is so often connected to back and shoulder pain too. Here's how you check. Sit comfortably in your fully adjusted chair, facing forward where your screen is. Close your eyes for a second. Relax your neck. Then open your eyes.
Where should your gaze land?
Your natural, relaxed line of sight should fall right around the center of your computer screen. If you find you're looking significantly up or down, you need to adjust the monitor's height. Use a monitor arm, a stand, or even just some sturdy books or reams of paper under the monitor base. Adjust it until the center of the screen is at your eye level. Also, make sure the screen is about an arm's length away from you. This helps reduce eye strain and stops you from craning your neck forward.
That's a fantastic practical checklist. It makes the whole adjustment process feel much less intimidating. And I guess the last step is just staying aware, checking in throughout the day.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Even with the perfect setup, bad habits die hard. Especially when you get absorbed in work or start feeling tired, you might begin to slouch or shift out of position. So just take a quick mental inventory every hour or so.
Like, are my feet still flat? Is my back supported? Shoulders relaxed? Am I actually sitting back in the chair?
Precisely. Make those little micro adjustments as needed. Getting your chair set up right isn't just a one and done thing. It's about developing that awareness and maintaining the right posture. That's how you really unlock the benefits of having that ergonomic tool.
Okay, so having the right chair, knowing how to dial it in perfectly, that's a massive step forward. But as we've kind of hinted at throughout, it's not a magic cure-all, is it? The sources are really clear that even the best chair can't completely undo the harm of just sitting still for hours on end.
That's probably the single most important message that comes through from all angles. The research, the guidelines, the user experiences. The chair makes sitting less bad, maybe significantly less bad, but it doesn't make prolonged, uninterrupted sitting good for you. Your body is just not designed for that level of stillness.
So many of the negative effects we talked about, circulation, metabolism, even the strain on muscles and joints, they're linked to just being static for too long.
Exactly. The lack of movement itself is a major culprit.
So what's the absolute minimum we should be doing beyond just sitting correctly in a good chair?
The number one recommendation, repeated everywhere, is simple. Break up your sitting time, frequently. The most common advice is to get up, stand, stretch, walk around a bit for at least a minute or two every 30 minutes.
Every half hour. That sounds like a lot.
It might sound like it, but it doesn't have to be disruptive. Even just standing up while you take a phone call or walking to the water cooler or doing a quick lap around the office or your house counts. Some of the users in the online discussions we looked at said that even just making a point to stand up and walk around for a minute every hour made a noticeable difference in how stiff and tired they felt by the end of the day. The key is interrupting that continuous sitting.
Are there specific stretches or movements that are particularly good to do during these mini breaks?
Yeah, simple things that counteract the seated posture are great. Just standing up and reaching your arms overhead feels good.
Yeah.
A gentle standing back bend, leaning back slightly with hands on your hips, helps open up your chest and hip flexors, which get really tight from sitting, and it can relieve some pressure in the lower back. Hamstring stretches are also good, maybe resting your heel on a low surface and gently leaning forward. That helps blood flow in the legs and can ease lower back tension too. Even tiny movements while you are sitting can help rolling your shoulders, circling your ankles, gently turning your neck side to side, anything to avoid being completely frozen in one position.
What about bigger picture exercise? Does going for a run or hitting the gym actually help combat the effects of sitting all day?
Oh, absolutely. General physical activity is hugely beneficial. Having strong core muscles, your abs and back, is crucial for supporting your spine and maintaining good posture, whether you're sitting or standing. Strong glutes and hip muscles also help. Regular exercise boosts circulation, helps manage weight, improves mood, and can definitely help prevent or alleviate the aches and pains associated with sedentary work.
But it matters how you exercise too, right? I remember you mentioning a user story about injuries.
Yes, that was a really pertinent reminder from one of the discussion threads. Someone shared they'd actually caused herniated discs by using improper form during exercises like deadlifts and squats, trying to counteract their sitting posture. It highlights that just moving more isn't always enough. Moving correctly is vital.
So maybe getting some guidance is a good idea.
It can be incredibly helpful, especially if you already have pain or you're starting a new exercise program. A physical therapist, for example, can assess your posture, identify weak areas potentially caused by sitting, and give you specific exercises with proper form to strengthen those areas and improve your overall mechanics. The sources definitely connect a lack of sufficient exercise combined with prolonged sitting to a higher likelihood of experiencing pain.
That user story really drives home the need for mindful movement, not just frantic activity. Okay, so breaking up sitting is key. What about fundamentally changing posture during the day? Sit-stand desks.
Yes, sit-stand options were mentioned frequently as a powerful tool. This could be a fully height-adjustable desk or one of those converter units you place on top of your existing desk. They allow you to easily switch between sitting and standing throughout the workday.
What are the main benefits?
The sources point to several. First, you simply burn more calories standing than sitting, which helps combat that reduced occupational energy expenditure we talked about. More importantly, studies suggest that alternating between sitting and standing is linked to lower risks for type 2 diabetes and cardiovascular problems compared to all-day sitting. It also engages different muscle groups, improves circulation, and can reduce musculoskeletal discomfort, particularly in the upper body and neck.
But standing all day isn't the goal either. Right? That comes with its own problems.
Correct. Standing rigidly in one place for hours can lead to foot pain, knee pain, lower back fatigue, even varicose veins. The key is the alternation. Finding a rhythm that works for you. Maybe stand for 30 minutes, then sit for an hour, then stand again. Users in the discussions mentioned needing supportive shoes or using an anti-fatigue mat to make standing periods more comfortable. But the research is pretty clear. Sit-stand workstations can significantly cut down total daily sitting time by 40 minutes to over 2 hours in some studies, and are associated with better mood, less fatigue, and fewer aches.
Those sound like pretty compelling reasons to explore sit-stand if it's feasible. What about other tweaks to the workstation environment itself, beyond the chair and desk height?
Think about your layout. Keep the things you use most often: keyboard, mouse, phone, key documents within easy reach. You want to minimize twisting or reaching awkwardly. Aim for relaxed shoulders with your elbows and forearms supported, either by the chair's armrests when resting or the desk surface.
And that point about the footrest again. If your feet don't reach the floor,
Yes, definitely use a footrest if needed when your chair is at the correct height for your arms and desk. It keeps your lower body properly aligned and avoids pressure behind the knees. And again, simple things like keeping your keyboard and mouse close prevents that forward reaching that strains your shoulders and wrists over time.
what about general body mechanics away from the desk?
That's important too. Think about how you lift things. The classic advice holds true. Keep your back straight, bend at the knees, hold the object close to your body, lift with your legs, and don't twist while lifting. Even just carrying groceries or bags, try to distribute the weight evenly rather than slinging everything over one shoulder. These little habits add up.
And there was that surprising link one source made between back pain, especially sciatica, and sleep.
Yeah, it makes sense when you think about it. You spend hours sleeping every night. The quality of your mattress and your sleeping position can definitely impact musculoskeletal pain. A supportive mattress that doesn't sag is key. If yours is old and unsupportive, it could be making things worse.
And sleeping positions.
The general advice is that sleeping on your side with your knees slightly bent, maybe with a pillow between your knees, is often best for spinal alignment. It takes pressure off the hips and lower back. If you sleep on your back, putting a pillow under your knees helps maintain that natural lower back curve. Stomach sleeping is usually discouraged because it can strain your neck and lower back. If you must sleep on your stomach, using a very thin pillow for your head, or none, and placing a pillow under your pelvis can help reduce the back arching.
Interesting. So how you sleep can help or hinder recovery from daytime strain.
Exactly, it's part of that holistic picture. The source also mentioned other common sense things for sciatica relief, like heat or ice packs, gentle stretching, rest, maybe over-the-counter pain relief, and massage.
Okay, so the takeaway here is clear. The chair is vital, but it exists within this whole ecosystem. Regular movement breaks, targeted exercise, a well-configured desk area, good body mechanics throughout the day, and even supportive sleep. They all play a crucial role in staying comfortable and healthy when you have a sedentary job. It's really helpful to bring in the voices of people who've actually gone through this, trying to find the right chair, dealing with back pain. Looking at those online discussion threads you mentioned, what were the main takeaways from people's real-world experiences?
Yeah, those threads were illuminating. A few really strong themes came through. First, for people who sit for long hours or who already have back issues, there is a very strong consensus that investing in a genuinely high-quality ergonomic chair from a well-regarded brand is usually worth the money.
Which brands kept coming up?
The names you'd probably expect: Herman Miller, Steelcase, Hayworth. These were frequently called out as sort of the top tier, known for build quality, adjustability, research-backed design, and effective support. People see them as long-term investments.
Any other brands mentioned positively?
Yes, others got good mentions too. Ergohuman came up. Secret Lab was mentioned, though often with caveats we can touch on. Burrow, specifically the Metro 2 Matto model, was highlighted by some users, particularly in places like Australia and New Zealand, as a solid, more affordable, but still properly ergonomic option. And brands like Iron Horse were noted for really heavy-duty or 247-use chairs.
Okay, so strong recommendations for established, reputable brands.
Yeah.
But here's the crucial part. Even those top-tier chairs don't work for everyone, right?
This was maybe the most important point from the user discussions. What one person raves about as the perfect chair, another person might find actively uncomfortable or even painful. People shared very specific reasons why popular, expensive chairs didn't work for them.
Like what?
For instance, some people really disliked the mesh seating on chairs like the popular Herman Miller Aran. They described the frame digging into their legs or just finding the mesh itself uncomfortable over long periods. Others really missed having a headrest on certain models. Some felt like the seat pan shape made them feel like they were sliding forward. And sometimes, despite all the adjustments, people just couldn't get a particular high-end chair to fit their specific body shape or support needs comfortably.
So even dropping serious cash on a famous chair is no guarantee.
Yeah.
What was the number one piece of advice coming out of these experiences?
Absolutely, unequivocally. Try before you buy. If there's any way possible, find a showroom or a retailer that stocks different ergonomic brands and models. Go there, sit in the chairs. Don't just perch for 60 seconds. Spend 10, 15, even 20 minutes in each one you're considering. Play with the adjustments. See how it actually feels over a slightly longer period.
What if you can't get to a showroom?
Then look carefully at return policies. Find online sellers or companies that offer a generous trial period, maybe 14 days or even 30 days, allowing you to actually use the chair in your own home office, at your own desk, for real work sessions. As users emphasized, how a chair feels for 5 minutes under bright lights is often very different from how it feels after 6 or 8 hours of actual work.
That makes total sense. Given the often high price tags on these top brands new, did people talk about ways to make it more affordable?
Yes, buying used or refurbished was a very common recommendation. People reported finding chairs from brands like Herman Miller or Steelcase in excellent condition for significantly less than new, sometimes well under half price. The key advice was to buy from reputable office furniture liquidators or specialized refurbishment companies. That way, you have some assurance the chair has been checked over, cleaned, and is in good working order, maybe even with a limited warranty.
That sounds like a great way to get high quality without the brand new price. What about those gaming chairs? They're everywhere, they look kind of ergonomic.
Ugh, gaming chairs. The general feeling in the threads was skeptical. For long-term ergonomic comfort, for work specifically, many users felt that a lot of gaming chairs prioritize a certain look, the racing seat style, over genuine, research-based ergonomic design principles.
What were the complaints?
Common ones were that they often feel too rigid, the side bolsters can be restrictive, the lumbar support is sometimes just a pillow rather than integrated and adjustable, and they just aren't designed for the kind of sustained, focused work posture you need in an office chair. While some people do find specific gaming chairs comfortable, the overall consensus among those focused on alleviating work-related pain seemed to be cautious, and they're probably not the best choice compared to a dedicated, high-quality office ergonomic chair if long-term support is your main goal.
That's really valuable user insight, cutting to the marketing. And again, it sounds like people who found real relief didn't just swap chairs, right? They talked about adjustments, breaks, exercise.
Exactly. The successful stories almost always involved a combination approach. Getting the right chair for them was step one, but then making sure it was adjusted properly, consciously taking breaks to move, sometimes adding a sit-stand desk, improving exercise habits. It was the whole package. The chair provides the foundation, but the habits and the rest of the setup build the healthy structure on top of it. Finding the right chair is deeply personal and needs to be part of that bigger strategy.
Shifting perspective again, let's look at the official side of things. Our sources included workplace guidelines, like those from occupational safety and health departments. This isn't just about personal choice. Employers have responsibilities here too, right?
That's a really important point. Guidelines like the Malaysian OSH ones referenced in one source make it clear. Employers often have a legal and ethical duty to provide workstations, including seating, that are safe and suitable for the tasks employees perform. The goal is to minimize the risk of injury and discomfort. It's not just a nice to have, it's frequently a requirement for a safe workplace.
And these guidelines emphasize that workstation needs, especially seating, aren't one size fits all. They depend heavily on the actual job.
Absolutely. The guidelines give specific examples to show how different tasks demand different setups. For instance, someone working with machinery or on an assembly line might need options that accommodate frequent posture changes or reaching.
Like what kind of option?
That could mean providing chairs that swivel easily, maybe sit-stand stools that allow for perching, specific reaching aids, or even specialized seats like lean-on supports or suspended seats if space is tight, or a standard chair just isn't practical for the task.
Okay, tailoring it to the physical demands of manufacturing or assembly. What about work requiring fine detail, like precision work, using microscopes, assembling tiny components?
Precision work often forces the worker into a relatively fixed, sometimes forward-leaning posture for concentration. So the guidelines stress the need for chairs that actively support this. That might mean chairs with backrests that adjust to provide support even when leaning forward, maybe seats that can tilt forward slightly, or adjustable work surfaces to bring the task closer to the person. The aim is to maintain good spinal alignment and reduce strain on the neck and upper back during that focused work.
And for the most common scenario we've discussed, keyboard VDU work, sitting at a computer all day.
This gets a lot of attention in the guidelines, naturally. It requires careful planning of the whole system, ensuring the chair allows for a correct seat height adjustment, feet supported, arms level with keyboard, making sure there's enough clearance under the desk for the user's legs. Getting the monitor position right, correct height, correct distance is critical. Using document holders to avoid constantly looking down at papers next to the keyboard is also recommended. It's about making all the components work together ergonomically.
What about specific environments like checkout counters? They often have unique space limits and repetitive movements.
Checkouts are tricky. Limited space, lots of reaching and scanning. Guidelines emphasize designing the layout to keep frequently used items within easy reach. The seating needs to be highly adjustable height, angle, swivel to fit different operators. Good padding is important, especially on the front edge of the seat to avoid thigh pressure. A footrest is often crucial. And the key point highlighted, echoing the user discussions, is the need to actually consult with the checkout staff themselves to understand their specific tasks and discomforts when choosing or designing seating.
Getting input from the actual users makes perfect sense. Lastly, the guidelines specifically mentioned microscope work.
Right. Using a microscope often requires holding a fairly rigid posture over the instrument. The guidelines emphasize setting up the whole station bench height, chair height, so the operator can maintain an upright posture with good joint angles, ideally close to 90 degrees at the hips, knees, and elbows. This usually means adjusting the bench and using a chair that allows the operator to sit tall and bring the microscope eyepieces to their eyes rather than forcing them to hunch down over it. The principle is always fit the work to the person.
These examples really underscore that concept of anthropometry we mentioned earlier, designing things based on human body measurements and capabilities.
Exactly. All those adjustment features on ergonomic chairs, height, depth, width, angles, they exist precisely because people come in all shapes and sizes. The guidelines explicitly talk about the need to accommodate the range of human dimensions from shorter to taller individuals, ensuring the workstation can be adapted to allow everyone to work comfortably and safely. It's about making the environment flexible enough for human diversity.
Wow. This deep dive has really opened my eyes to just how much is involved with something as seemingly simple as sitting. We see the serious downsides, the pressure on the spine, the link to chronic pain, musculoskeletal disorders, and even those scary connections to cardiometabolic diseases, cancer risk, and mortality.
Yeah, the risks of prolonged static sitting are significant and wide-ranging. But then we saw how the ergonomic chair is designed as a specific tool to fight back. Features like adjustable lumbar support fixed, adjustable dynamic, plus adjustable seat depth, backrests that support curves, armrests, tilt mechanisms. They're all engineered to try and support our natural structure and reduce that harmful strain.
But owning the chair isn't enough. We learned that knowing how to adjust it is absolutely critical. Using those specific checks, the elbow measure for desk height, the thigh check for seat height relative to feet, the fist test for seat depth, positioning the lumbar support just right, that's how you make the chair actually work for your body.
And maybe the biggest takeaway of all, even the most amazing chair, adjusted perfectly, is not a substitute for movement. That harm from being static for too long, it happens regardless of the chair. So breaking up sitting time regularly, standing, stretching, maybe using a sit-stand desk, getting actual exercise, setting up your whole workstation correctly, even thinking about your sleep posture, all these things are just as important, maybe even more important in the long run.
Right. That discomfort isn't just something to ignore. It's your body signaling that something needs to change: the chair, the setup, the habits, or likely a combination. Understanding all these factors gives you the power to make those changes.
It really puts you in the driver's seat, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay, so summing up the core insights from this deep dive. Prolonged sitting poses serious, diverse health risks way beyond just a sore back. Ergonomic chairs are tools designed with specific features, especially adjustable lumbar support and seat depth, to support your spine and reduce pressure. But their effectiveness depends entirely on proper adjustment using specific methods. And crucially, The chair is only one part of the solution. Regular movement, breaks, stretches, sit-stand options, general exercise, and optimizing your entire workstation and body mechanics are all essential components of mitigating the risks of a sedentary work life.
It's definitely a multi-pronged strategy needed to tackle a very modern problem.
So here's something to think about. In a world where sitting feels like the default for so much of our day, how can we consciously redesign our daily routines, not just our desks, but our lives, to intentionally build in more movement, to prioritize our physical health against that powerful inertia of staying still? What's one small, concrete change you could commit to making today, right now, based on everything we've talked about, to start shifting that balance between sitting and moving?
Something to consider as you go about the rest of your day.